Carl and Liam here from Games, Brains and Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for sure, and it's 2024, which means it's time to start season 2 of Are You Afraid of the Dark? This is We're Afraid of the Dark, our episodic recap, starting with season 2, episode 1, The Tale of the Final Wish, the season premiere of the second season, and the 14th episode overall. It is interesting that I only have 13 per season, but there you go. Feels longer though than Goosebumps at the moment. Do you find that?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I was just gonna ask you, like, what you made of the show so far, rewatching it up to this point?
Well, as a time recording last week, our tier list for season 1 went up, and obviously when I was editing that, I have to rewatch it quite closely because I'm adding in pictures here and there. And yeah, I'm like, God Almighty, there wasn't that much good in season 1.
Mm. Yeah, I'm actually a little bit disappointed by it because I remember making a lot of statements beforehand when we were doing Goosebumps about how this was like a show that was just far superior, at least in my memory. But I feel like that first season is quite weak, so hopefully going to see an improvement here in season 2.
Well, I mean, I suppose I would say for those watching this first video is that this is part 1 of what our recording session is going to involve several episodes in a row. And it is a mixed bag for me in regards to quality. But we'll get to the good and the bad, really, starting with this one. This one is written by Chloe Brown and directed by DJ McHale. So regular names, regular writer, regular director as well. Now, we will, because it's the start of season number 2, recap the members of the Midnight Society. But this also for a reason, as I'm going to get into in a moment. So we have Rachel Blanchard as Kirsten, Nathaniel Moreau as David, Jason Alasharian as Frank, Ross Hull as Gary, Jodie Rester as Kiki, and Rain Hooray Cool as Betty Ann. Liam, did you notice something missing there?
There's somebody missing, but I cannot remember his damn name.
You are correct. Someone is missing, and that is because of the character of Eric.
Mm,
Eric
mm, that's right.
Jacob Tierney had left the show, so I did some digging. What went on there?
Mm.
According to DJ McHale, Jacob left because he wanted to be paid more
Oh my God.
and wanted to do more beyond being a Midnight Society member. So he wanted more money, but he also wanted more to do. I think both are fair arguments because there's an argument to say, well, if you got the second one, then you would need the first one.
I'd be absolutely fascinated to find out how much they got paid to like do that at their ages as well in that time period. Like, can't have been very much because if you think about it, you got these 25-minute episodes. They're in it for like less than a minute sometimes, if that. And how much dialogue did they really get? A lot of them. So yeah,
There's an argument to say as well, like a lot of the segments could have just been filmed back to back.
they probably did just film it all in a
Yeah,
complete in a row, like in one day. Probably filmed everything, the whole season, like their little segments. Yeah.
absolutely. But DJ also felt that it was a good decision to get rid of Eric because 7 kids was too much and 6 was a much more sensible number.
Kind of agree that it does make it better when it's a bit less. But it's interesting because I'm pretty sure if memory serves me right that Eric's stories that he told were some of the better ones. Not that it matters, not like he's the actor's really telling them or anything, but at least he was given the better ones. Maybe he had a little bit of pull there, like you're not going to pay me much, at least give me the good stories or something. Who knows?
Well, it's not just yet, but in a couple of episodes' time, the first run of rankings will come out. As not just yet, as I felt it was still too early, but I'm going to get to a point in a couple of episodes' time where I'm going to tell you who has done what stories and how many and so on. But for now, I just want to add as well that the Midnight Society give no mention or any reference to what actually happened to Eric. And
Mm.
I thought that was interesting. But would you want to know the most simple reason as to why DJ McHale decided not to mention Eric's disappearance at all? And it is simply that he didn't think anyone would care.
Oh, I
And I
know
was
this.
like,
I
fuck it,
noticed.
no.
I noticed, and I guess because he left under apparently like bad circumstances, like demanding more money or something. But yeah, they could have just written him off by saying a simple line of dialogue. I don't know, moved away or something simple as that, innit?
Yeah, yeah. I just thought it was the fact that it's like, yep, he thought no one would care, so it's like I'm not even going to bother mentioning it.
It's something funny about the idea of there being like background drama amongst them, like egos and that sort of thing amongst like the campmates. Sounds something, some got to be some amusing stories there.
It's fun to find these stuffs out. I'm glad DJ McHale was willing to talk about it as well. Okay, the cast for the actual episode, though, we have Samantha Chemerikia, also known as Samantha Abode, as Jill Peterson, Thomas Sievewright as John Peterson, Jane Wheeler as Mrs. Peterson, Ian Finley as Mr. Peterson, and one of those famous guest stars is in this, Bobcat Goldthwait as the Sandman. You know from Police Academy, people. You know from Police
I mean,
Academy.
getting a bit ahead of myself, but as soon as he comes on screen, I literally my note was, "Hey, it's what's his name with the voice from Police Academy."
I haven't quite forgiven Bobcat Goldthwait because he made his horror directorial debut, I think like back in 2016 or maybe a little bit later, with a found footage horror movie about a couple in a camp in a tent. And it was one of the most mind-numbingly boring shit I'd ever seen.
He's one of those people that you'll see randomly, remember them, and you'll be like, "Oh, Google them. Like, what happened to that guy?" You know.
Yeah,
So they become a horror director apparently.
there it is. There it is. This is Kirsten's third story overall and first for season 2.
Mm.
We begin as we always do in the company of the Midnight Society. Kirsten is dressed up in an old-fashioned fairy tale style dress and is reading gruesome tales from an old-fashioned fairy tale book to David, who is disgusted by it. The others arrive, with Frank insulting the book by calling it childish and weak. The others defend the book and the darker stories, but Frank is not convinced. Kiki joins Frank's side, not wanting to hear a boring old fairy tale. However, Kirsten explains that her story has a darker edge. It's about a girl who loves fairy tales so much that she started to forget the difference between reality and imagination. I would argue that that is not at all what happens in this episode, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, I think they raise expectations a little bit too high there.
Yep. Also, what none of these kids have heard of Grimm's fairy tales.
That's true. I don't know about you, but I find this whole intro a little bit. I mean, it's often a cheesy show, but I thought this was a bit too cheesy for me.
Well, I mean, I'll just say it now. I think this is one of the worst episodes I've seen to date.
Can't let the
There
cat
it
out of the
is.
bag too soon.
Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, this is the tale of the final wish. And we begin with a dream sequence, a Snow White style dream involving a kindly looking woman offering a person an apple. And in an instant, she transforms into an evil queen and screams, "If you don't, I'll force you to eat it." It is just a dream being had by a young girl named Jill Peterson. And she fell asleep reading Snow White's and the Seven Dwarfs. And there you go, people. That is the level of scares you're going to get in this episode.
At least it lets you know right away what you're in for, kind of thing. The type of level of yeah, childishness, I suppose, is the is the word.
Childishness is the great choice of words. I did have one brief bit of excitement as I thought, oh, are they going to try and utilize fairy tales,
Exactly.
well-known
Yeah.
fairy tales into
Yeah.
this?
Mm.
Needing some water, she gets out of bed, but gets the vibe that something is under it. Naturally, for a girl in the fairy tales, she grabs the baseball bat sitting next to her bed. That made me laugh. Not a wand, not like a magic book or whatever, the baseball bat.
Of course, that's a classic fairy tale weapon.
There it is. Of course, there's nothing under her bed, and she gets her water. However, when she returns, she gets the same vibes, but dismisses them and sits on the edge of the bed, and a pair of hands that reach out from under the bed, grab her, and she screams in fear and runs to her parents' room. Something
Yeah,
grabbed her.
it was at this moment that I was pleading the episode to not deliver an annoying sibling character, but we'll go on.
Waking them up, she drags them to her room, and her father checks under her bed. He fakes her out, but ends up pulling out a dirty plate. I did at least laugh at that part, you know.
Mhm.
All the noise wakes up the fourth member of the family, Jill's brother, John. Of course, Jill's behavior is put down to having a nightmare and she's told to go back to bed. And when the parents leave, John reveals that it was him. He was under the bed and played a prank. We have it.
No, no, God, stop. Please, no more. At least I could, I had the whole idea about maybe R.L. Stein with Goosebumps. He grew up with annoying siblings, but what's their excuse? They have like different writers and directors for every episode.
From a storytelling perspective, I suppose you could say young pre-teens, teenagers. Yep,
Yeah, but it's just so often, isn't it? It's just like, come on
it
now.
is. It is. It's a frustrating trope in. It was a frustrating trope in Goosebumps. It's a frustrating trope in this. Jill is furious and they have a brief scuffle before Jill tells him to grow up. And John points out that she is the one living in fairy tales, so she should grow up. And man, I always wanted to high five him there. It's like, boom, that's it. You tell her.
Roll credits right there, man.
There it is. Kristen then narrates, pointing out that everyone keeps telling Jill to grow up, but she doesn't know what that means. And I thought, fuck. Oh my God, are we going to do an analogy here? Because that is really good. People tell you I'll grow up. What the hell does that even mean?
Mm.
I'm nearly
Yeah.
40. I'm 40 this year, and I'm sitting here on the internet on Zoom talking about Are You Afraid of the Dark from the 90s. Should I grow
Yeah.
up?
I don't know how much weight is it?
Taking ages to get ready for school. Jill misses the bus, and her mother has no choice but to drive her there. After browbeating Jill for her behavior, we cut to her in school in a library. Talk about a filler scene. Total filler.
Yeah, this is one of those moments in an episode where there's just not a lot to say about it.
She grabs some books and joins two other girls at a table. Those two girls are making eyes at some boy and get jealous when he appears to show Jill some attention. Seeing what books Jill has in her backpack, they set out to embarrass her when the boy comes over to ask Jill something about her schoolwork. They remove the books and show the boy, like, oh, she still reads these books, but it's a troll doll that apparently does it. The boy mentioned that he used to play with them as a kid, followed by the mean girl saying Jill still plays with them now, resulting in Jill leaving embarrassed. I don't mind this scene. The girls are suitably bitchy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've got, there's some faults with the episode, but one thing I don't think I can really fault is I thought the acting throughout was actually really good. Yeah.
Up until Bobcat Goldthwait turns up, I think, but yeah. That night, Jill is going to sleep and has a dream about the boy from school coming to kiss her, a la Sleeping Beauty. However, the face transforms into a monster's face and Jill screams. Once again, though, it's her brother playing a prank. And she kicks him out, declaring that she hates him and hates everyone. Apparently, this boy doesn't really sleep much because he spends every night pranking her. Also, stop coming in her room when she's asleep, you freak.
Because that's his only character trait. His only purpose to exist is that.
It's true. It's
He's
true.
not
It's the
real. He's
only
not
thing.
real. Then these people aren't real people. That's just they live to those like generic cliche bully characters and then annoying siblings. That's just like they did nothing else. Yeah.
Despondent, she picks up one of the books she took from the library, which is called A Sandman and Other Tales, and goes to the window. Looking at the star, she says aloud, what's so wrong about wanting to live in a world where dreams come true and you can wish on a star? I wish I could and wish everybody would just leave me alone. So it's wishing upon a star stuff. You kind of know where this one is going already, although I would argue that whoever granted that wish took fucking liberties with it.
Also, is it just me, or did you get a sort of labyrinth vibe from this episode? Yeah, I kind of got that with the style and just it has a sort of atmosphere, similar atmosphere. It felt like to me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. On this point, particularly more than anything else, it really kind of felt like it. But yeah, definitely not as imaginative or with the money or
Oh
with,
yeah, I'm not actually comparing. I'm just saying
of
there's a
course,
slither of a similarity.
man. If only we'd got David Bowie's cock and balls in this, it would have been 10 times better. So she goes back to sleep, but wakes up later to find her brother standing beside her bed, fast asleep. She can't wake him up, so she goes to her parents and finds their bed empty. In fact, the whole house is empty. So she goes back to her bedroom to find her brother has now disappeared. Now, I will praise this 1 minute segment here is the sort of tone and the feel. I did actually get a strong sense of emptiness from it, and I did kind of wonder, like, how would you handle that at her age?
Mm, yeah.
Seeing movement under the bed, she figures it's her brother trying to scare her again, but instead out pops a man. Naturally, she screams, tries to run away, but she ends up being sucked under the bed and into another dimension in an effect. I'm just going to say it's an effect.
Yeah, I thought the whole her getting sucked out of her doorway under the bed that looked pretty cool.
Agreed. It's the falling and the sort of like trippy visuals
Mm.
they do. We've seen it before. You can only do so much with low budgets, you know. Time for things to get trippy. As she finds herself in some sort of big clock, finding a door with smaller clocks surrounding it. And inside, she finds people floating in the air asleep. Now, I'm going to praise a lot of the visuals here. The sets are quite clever, a little bit too dark in places, and I think they could have maybe really given us backgrounds. But I do like the idea that it's in a bit of a timeless area. And the sort of effect of people sleeping in midair, I thought was done quite well.
Yeah, I mean, you can see they're working within their limitations clearly. But yeah, they make some nice props of like sand timers and clocks and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, yeah, it looked pretty cool. Gives the environment like a sort of surreal feel, which I thought was cool.
Agreed. As she walks around, she notices a door with the number 7 on it, so goes inside. In here, she finds a sort of office, laboratory, storeroom, I don't know what it is, with vials of various sands and different types of dust labeled. Things like deep sleep, catnip, 40 winks, snooze, and out like a light. And unfortunately, this is where I went, right, this isn't going to get anything any more serious than this. While looking at a huge hourglass filled with sand, the man from under the bed appears and pushes her to work out who he is. The man turns out to be none other than the Sandman, and this is Bobcat Goldthwait, and he's brought her to the land of Nod, where everyone goes to dream. Why? Why?
Yeah,
He did. It's just the fact that like she's like if he's doing her wish and he took everyone away, that's it.
yeah. There's always like an extra bit, isn't there?
Yeah, because he claims he did this because she wished upon a star while holding a storybook. Now everyone will sleep forever in the land of Nod and leave her alone. She's in her own fairy tale now, one that even has its own book, which he shows her. She wants to see the ending, but he refuses, as that would be cheating. Upset, of course, Jill demands to go home, but the Sandman claims fairy tales can't be changed. I mean, look, I'll say it here now at this point because I have to listen to him talk a lot, but his voice just cuts through me. And all I hear is Bobcat Goldthwait, not the Sandman.
Yeah, I mean, he was. I guess this was during a period of time when he was probably at his higher popularity. So, he's got a unique voice, that's for sure. And, he does add that eccentricity that you want from a eye for the dog adult character. So he's like probably the most interesting thing about the whole episode, really, I think. So obviously, it kind of like whether you love or hate the voice, you can get past that or not, but it does add something, I think.
Okay, I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from. Jill wants everyone to go back home, but the Salmon won't let them because that is reality and she wanted a fairy tale. Be careful what you wish for. So Jill runs away, running from room to room of sleeping people, eventually opening a door and finding herself in a room filled with doors. And each one leads to different fairy tales, I guess, because we don't explore it fully. She opens one, leads her to a Alice in Wonderland reference with the Queen of Hearts threatening to cut her head off. I would have liked to have seen a few more doors open here and then we really use their imagination here, but it's just the only one she does. Oh no, she opens Hansel and Gretel, sorry, as well. Hansel and Gretel with the witch greeting her with the threat of being cooked in the oven.
Mm.
Jill continues to run, eventually coming across her classmates, her brother, and her parents all asleep. Extremely upset, Jill begs the Sandman to reverse thing, but again, he refuses. She now ends up back in his office and still tries to get through to the Sandman. The problem with this, right, is that it's the same thing that's been said over and over again. It feels like we're stalling and we're like, oh, we got 30 seconds to waste, so run around a bit. You're going to run around a bit and you're going to ask him to do it and he's going to say no again, and then we'll
Yeah,
get to the next part.
she begs him to undo her wish. He says no, that's not how it works. Kind of just goes round and round, and it's like, move on.
Yeah, basically. Getting desperate though, she threatens to smash the huge hourglass and the Sandman begs her not to do it. Dude, don't give away that. The response there is go, yeah, do what you want. I don't care. It doesn't mean anything. But go, no, 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 no. You basically meant that's a big deal.
You might as well put in a sign and put it on there saying don't smash. You know?
She demands he send everyone back home, but the Sam reminds her fairy tales can't be changed, that they are what they are. He reminds her that it isn't how her fairy tale is supposed to end. And if she insists on being foolish, he'll have to put her to sleep too. And actually, I will give him credit here, because at the same time as Jill realized, I went, hey, because if he could do that, it means fairy tales can be changed. And Jill realizes it too. So I'll give him credit for the way that is thrown out there.
Yeah.
He obviously tries to back up, but it's too late, and Jill smashes the hourglass. As she is assaulted by visions of the things she experienced so far in the land of Nod, she wakes up in bed screaming. Her parents and John come in, but she's just happy to see them. And as they all go to leave, she tells them that she's now going to give up on fairy tales. So she's going to grow up or something. I don't know. When she goes back to sleep, the wind blows open the Sandman and Other Tales book. It goes to the last story called The Tale of the Final Wish. Then it blows to the last page in the book, and we hear the Sandman saying, "The little girl went back to sleep. Promise her never to believe in fairy tales." Nah, I'm not going to do it. Fairy tales again.
That's a pretty good impression.
If only she knew, she never would have gotten into that bed again. And it ends with the Sandman diabolically laughing, and that's it. And I was like, wait, what does that mean?
Oh, well, don't ask me.
Like, this isn't Goosebumps. We don't need to do the little stinger, something bad's going to happen regardless kind of thing. We just don't.
Said that before, like they sometimes with My Friend in the Dark, they always feel like they have to, or even with Goosebumps, they have to tack on something at the end, some kind of twist ending or something like a hook at the end, but it's just not necessary sometimes. And this is one of those occasions, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Obviously, back to the campfire, and everyone around the fire looks impressed, which I was like, bullshit. This is lies. I would be sitting there so angry with Kirsten and say, "You're not telling stories anymore."
That's what I'm saying. That's also another frustrating point we've made before, is that everyone's always so pleased and happy with the story, but I just definitely feel like this is one where there'd be a few murmurings of wasn't really for me, you know.
Yeah, because it gets worse, because David tells her it was excellent, while Betty, Ann, and Kiki nod along happily. It's like, come on, man. Even if a character goes, "Oh, well told, Kirsten, but I didn't really like that story. It wasn't for me." Like, just make it a bit more believable.
Exactly, yeah.
Frank asks Kirsten which part of the book has the part where the children get their heads chopped off. And it ends with Frank and Gary looking through the book, excitedly to see more scary stories.
Or is that a sort of criticism that he's saying that he wants to see more horror, so he's seeking that out? It's like maybe an underhanded criticism there. I don't know.
We got to take those minute things we can out of this. I thought this was awful. This season couldn't have started off in a worse way. For starters, I didn't remember this episode. I had no memory of seeing this episode at all. So that was initially a good thing, but it's so light on anything resembling spooks and thrills and chills and things that are supposed to exist in this. I remind people, as I've said all the way through season 1 of this, we are not expecting horror on our level. We know this. We've done way too many episodes of Goosebumps and this, but we've also seen the boat we pushed out in both shows where they are willing to be creepy and uncomfortable and have light elements of horror, teenage horror. This isn't a horror story. It's a fucking fairy tale.
Yeah. Not sure what I can really add to that, but yeah, as you have said, obviously it doesn't deliver in the scares department at all. And I don't really understand the message of the episode either. Like she's gonna now grow up and stop reading kids' bedtime stories, fairy tales. Okay, I guess, is that the message, that you should grow up and leave these so-called childish things in the past? Like, I don't really agree with that message anyway, or like I think that's a really positive message to put towards kids and stuff. Maybe from that time period, I guess parents always telling kids to stop being childish and stuff like that. Maybe that's like changing mentalities at the times. I don't know, but yeah, like you said, they probably did as much as they could with the budget they probably had. So you got maybe forgive them a little bit there. Maybe they could have done more with the fairy tale stuff. It's disappointing. You want to see more creativity there, but they don't really do it. And one thing that I did notice also is, even after she goes through that whole ordeal with the Sandman, when she wakes up, she basically is told to go back to bed by her parents, and she just like happily goes back to bed and goes back to sleep. And it's like, I guess she really does believe it was a dream and wasn't real. So then what's the point anyway? Because it had no impact on her at all in terms of being scared. Why the hell would she go right back to sleep if she thought sleeping would probably lead to the Sandman getting her again? I thought that was a bit silly. So if she doesn't even believe it was real, then does that make it real or what? Like, I don't know.
No, you got a very good point, actually. She does just go back to sleep so comfortably. I didn't even really think about it. I think because I was so switched off by the end. But yeah, that never even entered my mind. It so makes it all feel very, very pointless.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. So that's a good note to end on, I think.
It is indeed. We're off to a rough start. It is episode 1 of season 2 of Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Tale of the Final Wish. What do you reckon? You got any thoughts on it? Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It is gratefully appreciated. You can find us over at gbhbl.com, our full website, where reviews, news, and so much more goes up daily. We're also on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, at GBHBL. Just search for GBHBL and you will find us out there. We also have merchandise on sale. You can access the shop via the website.